really feeling it.
I'm really feeling it. I'm really feeling it.
Not better? Good. Ah! Sorry, I played too much Smash.
I mean,
not enough Smash.
Enough.
I'm coming over.
Oh, we should.
Well, I haven't played yet, and there's nothing I could say that you didn't say better.
You never played Smash?
No, I haven't played Xenoblade 3.
Just kidding.
Featuring Samus from Super Nintendo?
I know. Yes, Metroid, who can crawl.
Metroid can crawl so well.
Yeah, she can.
Speaking of dating ourselves with memes.
Hello and welcome to episode 100 of Rhythm Encounter, the RPG-Fan music podcast. I'm your host, Mike Salbato, and today we have a very special episode for you. Just a little bit of history here, but back in 2012, there was this plan at RPG-Fan to start a music podcast, which, if you're listening, you can tell, obviously, took on the name of Rhythm Encounter. And two of our biggest music people at the site, which were Stephen Meyerink and Derek Heemsbergen, they launched the show and gave us something that, as far as I knew, didn't really exist anywhere else, is this podcast about RPG music. And, that was a while ago. But, even today, there's not a lot of that out there. There's a lot of great music, video game music podcasts, but there's not much that really specifically covers RPGs. So I'm really happy that this exists and that it's still going. And, that this show would not exist without Stephen and Derek. So I'm very, very happy to say that both of them are here today in this special episode. So thank you both for being here so much.
It is a pleasure, Mike. Thank you for having us back on.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's very interesting that it has been almost 10 years.
I know. I'm trying not to think about it too much, but yeah, it's been so long since the three of us got to do this show. So this is just really, really exciting for me personally. And, hopefully the people listening, but it's very important to me. So, but yeah, well, actually, I'm going to link to the first episode in the show notes, but, so I'm a little afraid to mention this date, looking back, because I didn't realize it had been so long, but episode 1 of Rhythm Encounter debuted February 25th, 2013. So yeah, almost 10 years ago now. This is generally a regular episode. We are going to talk about music and some other things. So I don't want to spend too much time reflecting, but at the same time, that's been a long time. It was a long time ago this show started. So I'm sure we have plenty of readers and listeners who weren't around back then or weren't listening back then. Maybe they weren't even born.
Or may not have been
then.
Alive.
Yeah, you never know. So I thought it'd be fun to just talk about just a little bit what made you guys want to make this show? How did you convince people hey, let us do this show? Even I don't remember all of it because those forums where we talked about them don't exist anymore. So, hopefully you remember better than I do how that all came together.
Oh man, consigned to the ashes of time. It's I feel like whatever answer I give is probably going to rewrite history somewhat because, as you mentioned, it's been so long that I can't even necessarily remember the exact discussions that led to the formation of the show. At the time, we had Random Encounter, which is our discussion podcast, and at some point, I think it just organically sprung from that because we thought, let's also talk about the music that we love so much in these RPGs. And I just remember some of the themes of the early episodes, like Skies of Arcadia and Dreamcast, and the first episode was called Fragile Dreamcast, right?
Yeah.
Which is delightfully relevant to the moment.
Yeah, there's still some, I remember we did a two-part Phantasy Star episode, and there are still sort of Phantasy Star lessons I learned during those episodes from Steven that I remember to this day. I think the show just sort of sprang organically out of a conversation where we were maybe let's talk about the music too, and that way we can geek out about that additional thing that we care about so much. Stephen, do you have any particular memory of exactly what spawned the show?
Yeah, well, all I remember is that everyone said no the first time. Whoever was the editor-in-chief at the time, maybe it was Eric, was no, I don't think we have time for that. I'm well, we don't have time for any of this, so that doesn't matter. And so I think I just remember being no, we should do this. And I think I was running the music section at that point, or maybe the first time I tried to, I wasn't. And then the second time, I remember being no, Derek and I are interested in doing this, so we're just going to do it. And I think eventually we just stopped asking and just did it.
That sounds about right.
And I think Mike's the idea, so we didn't have to worry about not having somebody that could, make graphics and stuff for it. Or in fact, I think you had made graphics for it before we even finished the show because you liked the idea, and then I liked the graphic. But yeah, all I remember is eventually we just said, well, we're going to stop asking. I am no longer asking. Even though that meme didn't exist at the time. And
again, rewriting history. It's fine.
Yeah, and I think for the early episodes, I don't think we had guests. I think it was just Derek and I for the first couple episodes. And then eventually we started having like a rotating third guest. And I know very early on we talked to Casey Ormond. About his new, at the time, Final Fantasy XII piano album.
Yeah, can you believe that? That was new then. I still think about that, man.
Yeah.
We also talked to Ivy Tran of Ivy and Surashu.
Yeah, and it was her first interview. She told us then she was nervous and she had never done an interview before. And now she's, super prolific.
Yeah, she worked on Steven Universe and has since come out with her own sort of music genre that she's been pioneering with Surashu and some other artists.
Yeah, and they have their own label now. That was pretty cool.
We got to talk to some cool folks, listen to some cool music. And I suspect we're going to do that exact same thing today.
I think so. I remember we talked to Tom from Xseed, or who used to be at Xseed, and that got me my first job in localization, actually.
I think it may have as well. Thanks, Rhythm Encounter.
Yeah, because he came on our show to talk about obscure Falcom stuff.
Yeah, like Dinosaur Resurrection.
Yeah, and the title is great. Falcom Tomfoolery, which is just such a great title. Whoever came up with that is great.
God, we're so smart.
Yeah, and I remember he had added me on Facebook, and I passed a test in Japan for some company that sucks to translate their games. And he saw on my Facebook that I was excited. He said, "Oh, you passed the test. Hey, do you want to take ours? We need someone to come work on the side quest for this game." And that's how I worked on my first game that didn't suck. Well, the game was fine, but that's how I worked on my first project with people who didn't mistreat me.
Hold on, I don't think anyone RPG fan mistreated you though. Like, let's be clear about that.
No, but I also didn't take translation tests. Right, and he still does that.
Yeah.
And this is not completely relevant to the show, but I talked to Rob's class actually 2 days ago about the video game industry. He's teaching it's December, some class on video games, and it was just like always talking to Rob is, and we roasted him a lot in front of his students, and that was fun too. And yeah.
Well, that sounds pretty fun. I didn't know about that one. I was just going to talk about how much I liked the show, even though I didn't make my debut until episode 12, because Steven was like, "Hey, we're going to do time travel music, and we're going to have a reference to Back to the Future in the title." So like, I at some point I had to give in.
Yeah.
That I couldn't say no to.
Like, I'll be right there. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So like, I wasn't in charge of the show. I was like an occasional guest for a while there. So it wasn't until like much later when I became managing editor and now editor in chief, where I was like, you guys were long gone at that point. But the show was kind of off air for a couple years at least, and it was really, really important to me because even though it wasn't my show, I didn't create it. Like, it was so, I just felt it was really important to have, that it needed to keep existing. So in the middle of rebuilding the entire website of RPG Fan and moving it to like this different platform, I was like, I'm going to do Rhythm Encounter too. Wisely, I did not try to do them at the same time. I was like, this site project needs to finish so we can get back to the podcast, because yes, rebuilding the site took several years, and it's a big deal, and that's important, but more importantly is we need to talk about music again. And thankfully that happened like that fall.
I agree.
So I did want to ask, I mean, you touched on it a little bit. If you want to talk about more, you can, but I wanted to talk to you guys, or have you talk to us rather, about what you do now. Like, obviously you're not with the site now, and you guys talked a little bit about how you got started. Like, I didn't realize it was actually like that specific episode. I knew RPG Fan in general was like kind of a launching pad for you guys, like getting into more parts of the industry. But where did you go from there, and like what do you guys do now? And I know obviously you can only talk about certain things you do, but tell us a little bit. Yeah,
we mentioned the episode with Tom. I can point to that specifically because my first sort of industry job outside of the journalist sphere was working as a localization editor on Fate X Stella, the Umbral Star with Xseed Games. And it was a similar situation where I had just had a conversation with Tom Lipschultz, formerly of Xseed, and had indicated that I was also interested in working on localization. And he mentioned that they were looking for an editor on a project, and then they had me take their editing test, and I passed it, and everything just went from there. There was a period of time after Fate X Stella where I wasn't really doing much localization work, but that is now, I'm very proud to say that's now my full-time job. Since working as a freelance editor with Xseed, I worked on a whole bunch of titles over the past, it's been like 8 years or so, maybe longer. I've gotten to do some really, really cool things as a localization editor. I worked with 8.4 on Dragalia Lost, which, rest in peace, it just shut down this last month. Very sad about that, because that game is some of my most favorite localization work I've done. But I got to work on that. Some of the Trails series, which, if you've ever heard me on this show before, you know I'm a huge fan of the Legend of Heroes series, so I got to work on Trails of Cold Steel 4. I worked on Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, several Story of Seasons games, Rune Factory games, yada yada yada. So I've gotten to do a lot of really amazing projects, and I have since moved on to be a full-time in-house localization editor at the Pokemon Company. So I've been working there since earlier this year, and that's now my full-time gig. So suffice it to say that RPGFan was instrumental in helping me build my career. I really cherish the time that I spent here, and will always point to it as like the thing that opened doors for me, because if not for RPGFan, I wouldn't have gotten published work out there. I wouldn't have made so many connections in the industry, and I wouldn't have met any of the people here at RPGFan that I still have enduring friendships with. It's truly been an incredible place, and whenever people ask me about how I got started in this industry, I always point to RPGFan and talk about the importance of networking. It's, the environment today for getting into the game industry is much different than it was a decade ago. It's always changing, and it's a really, really hard industry to penetrate. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't try for it if you're interested, but if people ask me, like, what do you recommend I do? For me, the answer was volunteer work, basically, for a long time, and just getting in with a place like RPGFan. So I'm very grateful that I took a gamble on submitting an application back when RPGFan was hiring news writers. I moved on to do reviews and then podcasts. And so my very short version of my long answer is since RPGFan, I started working in localization, and now I'm a full-time editor at the Pokemon Company. So life is pretty damn good, I have to say.
I am just so happy to hear that. I mean, not that I didn't personally know all of that anyway, but it's hearing it all like condensed into like a couple minutes. Like I'm happy that all that worked out so well for you. Like, as the person in charge of RPGFan, but just also as your friend, I'm just like really proud and like pleased, and it's just really good to hear how well things are going for you. So
I appreciate it, Mike. It was not an easy road, I'll say that, and I am not taking any of it for granted. It's definitely a dream to be where I'm at, and I know so many people have tried and fought very hard, and I feel like it was just a combination of so many circumstances that led me to this point. So I will always point to RPGFan and say thank you for being the sort of inciting factor there. And I'm glad to be where I'm at, and I'm glad to be surrounded by cool folks like you. I've actually had the pleasure of working with Steven in the localization field outside of RPGFan on several occasions, and Steven is also pretty deep into the field. What have you been up to, Steven?
What have I been up to? Well, let's see. My last year of RPGFan, I was living in Japan, and I was in a language program, and that language program led to me taking the Japanese language proficiency test, which I passed, which is not actually necessarily that important towards getting a job in localization, but it was nice. It was nice. And so when I left the site, I worked with Xseed on Akiba's Beat, which was a less cheesecakey version, or less cheesecakey turn-based JRPG, where Akiba's Trip was more of a like action RPG where you whack people and their clothes come off and or something. I don't remember. Anyway, that's what I worked on. I worked on the side quest for that, and that sort of led from one thing to the other. and I am still freelancing, but I've been working with 8.4 a lot, the company that is responsible for things like Fire Emblem Awakening, Dragalia Lost. I worked on Dragalia Lost for all of the years of its life. The whole main story was something I translated, and then it was definitely it's interesting because Dragalia was the longest job I've ever held. Not because I can't hold a job, but because all my pre-college jobs and my college jobs and stuff, they didn't last that many years because I was always moving or always going somewhere else, or I worked at Walgreens for a number of years, but I left and went to grad school, or I left and did one thing or the other. So yeah, Dragalia wrapping up was a big thing. I learned a lot. Man. Yeah, I learned a lot on that project, and I made a lot of money on that project, which I like even more. Not ashamed to admit that. Well, let me put this way: for somebody who has only worked in-house for like a year at a shipping company that I hated and got paid badly at, I made a lot of money at Dragalia. For anybody else, it would not have been a lot of money. But
yeah, I mean, pay in the localization industry is not good. We'll just say that.
Yeah, the pay is LOL, to put it that way, which is not as positive as I'd like to come off, because it is work that I wanted to do for a very long time, and I love doing it. I work on a lot of Square Enix games now. I worked on the Voice of Cards series, which I was very proud of my writing in that. And if you've played Voice of Cards 3, that I did almost the whole main story for. Not all of it. I worked with some excellent other translators who I'm not sure want me to say their name, so I won't say it. But if you look it up, it's in the credits, and they are great. And some of my friends got me involved with that client. I worked on Ghostwire Tokyo, which I was the editor on that, actually. I do both translation and writing and editing in the game industry now. I worked with an excellent translator on Ghostwire, Tom James, and one of my favorite projects I've worked on. It took a long time, but I handled the editing on that. And let's see what else. I worked on Fire Emblem 3 Hopes with 8.4, which with another giant team of great people, including my wife, which is pretty cool. She was an editor. She got to edit my work. And I'm working on some stuff now that is definitely the biggest stuff I've ever worked on, and I unfortunately can't talk about what it is yet, but I'm very excited to talk about it when it does come out. And yeah, so I've just had I've been very grateful to have a successful freelance career. I've gotten to work on some cool magazine stuff and composer interviews, all sorts of things that I had always wanted to be able to do. So that's been very fulfilling, and I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of really talented writers and people who, I've worked with people who made the games, who helped write the games that were influential to me when I was growing up. The first time I worked with the editor who worked on Tales of the Abyss, for example, that was crazy, because that was a game that I loved so much. And I can't talk about other editors that I've worked with because it might give away projects right now. But point being, I've also gotten to work with Derek on a number of projects, and that's been awesome.
I don't want to interrupt you in the middle of it, but to interrupt you in the middle of it, we talked about how we did a Rhythm Encounter episode on the Phantasy Star series, and the two of us got to work together on Phantasy Star Online 2. That was a pretty full circle moment early on in our localization career.
Yeah, I almost forgot about that. Yeah, we worked on PSO 2. That was, and it was like, yeah, we did podcasts about this. This was huge, so yeah, it's been really cool getting to work on a lot of stuff that I loved. I'm sort of in the midst of a recalibration moment, because I've worked on so many things like bucket list kind of games that, it has me kind of now thinking about what is next in my career, which isn't to say I don't love what I'm doing and I'm not going to keep doing it, but it's definitely one of those moments where you're like, wow, all those things that felt like they were just pie in the sky are now pie in my belly. So what now? The answer now is I want to make more money. So I want, I'm more interested now in learning more about the game industry in terms of development. I've been teaching myself C# and Unity and Unreal Engine, and game design and narrative, specific concepts and narrative design. So definitely still kind of grasping for what's next, but very happy with everything that's gone on so far and the people I've gotten to work with.
You deserve it, man. You're one of the best.
You're one of the best. That's why you're at Pokemon.
Mike's one of the best.
Mike is one of the best. Thank you for keeping the show going, Mike. It takes a lot of time to make this show, so I think everybody who does listen to it, I'm sure they do, but I hope they appreciate just how much time and effort goes into making this show. One of the reasons I had to leave the site was because on top of working on games that the site was going to cover, which felt like a bit of a conflict of interest, I just, the time it takes to, run a freelance career is substantial. And the music show, dear as it was to us, is just such a time commitment. So I really appreciate that you and everybody at the site who's been keeping it going and coming on the show and talking about music they love is keeping the dream alive.
I mean, it is. Like, I'm not going to, there's no way I like to avoid that. Like, yes, it's a lot of work. Retro Encounter is also a lot of work just because, like recently, they played through all 3 Mass Effect games. Like, just in terms of time commitment to play all of that and then record about it, like, is also a huge commitment. But like for the podcast itself, like Rhythm Encounter is definitely the most involved. And I need to at least pause for a second, and I need to say, like, when we brought the show back, like, I was editing it myself because I edited a little bit before the show kind of went on its hiatus, and like I know enough how to do it, so like I know firsthand that just the way the show is structured with like the different blocks and the music and cutaways and background music, like it's so much more production than the other shows need. So yes, like of course you couldn't find time for that. It's just too much. And after we brought the show back, there was another time period where we were kind of on break for the same reason, because I couldn't make the time for it with other things. And one of the main reasons that the show, came back from that break is that John O'Logan offered to edit. I don't know why. I don't know why he's offering to do this while running and editing Random Encounter, but if I didn't have him editing this, we could not be doing this show every 2 weeks. So my hat is absolutely off to you, Jono. So thank you. So it's this big group effort that makes this happen every time. And I'm so happy that we can still do it. So, all right. Well, that's our show, everyone.
That's the show. Bye, everybody.
Right, yeah. Thanks for listening to us wax nostalgic and stroke each other's egos.
Yeah, exactly. So there's going to be there's like 9 songs after this. So just go and listen to those, and they're all good. That's enough. We don't need to talk about them.
That's it. That's my commentary. The songs, they're good.
All right. But no, like let's talk about some music. Like I appreciate you guys sharing all that. Like it's, again, like for me, like I know a lot of that. I didn't know all of it, but I'm sure people listening, I have to imagine that's fascinating, because like it's just cool, the stuff you guys have worked on. And I know, like, Steven, you have a bunch of stuff listed on your website. Like you only touched on some of the stuff. Like what you've worked on has been awesome. So I don't know. It definitely gives me this like sense of pride. Like, look, sometimes, not to get too far into it, but like sometimes I sit here and look at all the time I spend on RPG-Fan and how much work it takes to keep this going. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, is it worth it? Because like this is so much. I'm like, are people getting anything out of this? But then I remember, we get feedback from listeners and people commenting, and then I think about, people like you guys and Kim and like a bunch of other people that have gone on from this into other things. I'm like, all right, there is something here. There is a value here. So I gotta. Yeah. Sometimes I have to remind myself.
Totally.
Also, I think as long as one person is enjoying the content you're putting out, even one person, I think it can be worthwhile to do that thing, because we don't always have to do, get a material or even immaterial benefit from the things that we're passionate about.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even that. It's just the podcasting is so weird. Like, all of us, like I talk about it, Solosi talks about it. It's like, we know, like we can see our statistics. Like we know there are people listening, but you always wonder, it's like, how many people are listening? It's like, as long as someone's getting something out of it, every once in a while you get feedback though, just to confirm, it's like, okay, yes, this is, people are enjoying this. So like that is nice to hear.
Yeah, right on.
All right. So let's give people some music to enjoy then on that note, huh?
Let's
do it.
So because this is a special episode, we, instead of having everyone pick 2 songs, we each pick 3 today, because, it's episode 100. It's a big deal. It's our first triple digit episode. So we went a little bit bigger on the songs today.
Triple digit? I don't know why I said that. Ignore me. I haven't even had coffee.
You haven't?
Well, I've had decaf. So,
okay.
Yeah,
well, I'm presently having coffee, baby.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so we're gonna do 3 blocks of songs and then 3 songs each. So each of us has a song in each section here. So our first block today, we're starting off with you, Stephen. What's our first song today?
Okay, cool. I'm going to mispronounce this, but anyways, this is from the Chained Echoes soundtrack, which just came out literally a few days before we recorded this. The track is Fons Sapientiae, which I probably mispronounced, by Eddie Marianukroh. And I actually have only played a little bit of this game so far, but if you've been on Twitter or any online source at the moment, a lot of people are giving this game a lot of attention for being a sort of very stylish, modernized, classic JRPG. It has the sort of trappings of an SNES era JRPG. Your Final Fantasy VI, your Chrono Trigger comparisons that the creator himself has actually made. And I was just really struck because I didn't have the time to play the game, so I instead listened to the soundtrack several times the other day when I was working. And it's a brilliant soundtrack. There's shades of Xenogears in there, which I won't spoil the name of the track because I actually think that would be a spoiler. But there's a track that sounds just like some Xenogears stuff. I don't want to talk about it too much before we listen to it, because I have some comments, and I actually talked to the composer and got some comments on the track that we're going to listen to, which will be excited to share afterwards.
Yeah, that one caught me by surprise too, because I've been looking forward to the game, but I listened to some of the songs came out right before the game. There was a little video, and I've been keeping my eye on it, or I guess my ear on it, but it's very good. I'm excited to get into that. So after that one, I have a song from Ghost Song. Which is something that, speaking of games we've been looking forward to for a very long time, I think Rob and I were talking about that like 6 or 7 years ago. But that actually came out this year. So that's pretty exciting too. So we're going to listen to Little Blue from Ghost Song. And then after that, we have your first song. Well, songs, Derek.
Yes, songs. So you'll already find I'm a bit of a mold breaker here. Okay, I'm shaking things up. I've picked not one song for my first song, but 2 songs for my first song. How does that work?
Pikachu is making Derek wild.
Yeah, it's true. I'm all electrified with authority. So I've got 2 songs here. They're essentially 2 halves of the same whole. You're going to find that my theme today is battle themes because I just feel feisty, I guess. So I'm going to play for you first Skirmish and Open the Shard, both from the Legend of Heroes, Kuro no Kiseki, which is the, at the time of recording, second newest Legend of Heroes game in Japan, starring Van Arkwright and his motley crew of people from the Calvardian Republics. Anyway, we've got kind of like a lower tempo battle theme, and then the crap gets real version of that same battle theme coming up for you.
Awesome. All right, let's go take a listen, and we'll come back with some commentary after.
Yeah, so first of all, listening through the Chained Echoes soundtrack, I mentioned that there's this amazing soundscape that I really love where sometimes and I don't necessarily think this is inherently a bad thing, sometimes I feel that these throwback retro RPGs, sometimes the music can be so throwback that it fails to sort of establish itself as its own thing and give it something other than, hey, this sounds kind of like something you heard on Sega Genesis, or this sounds like something you heard on Super NES. And again, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. In fact, I've known soundtracks in the past that I've loved that have done that. But what I love about Chained Echoes soundtrack, and so far the game, is that even though it's trying to press on the parts of your brain that have that nostalgia, it's definitely not trying to have that be its entire identity. And that's what I've loved about this soundtrack, is that every track I've heard has this really crazy soundscape that I love. The final boss theme in particular, again, I'm not going to say what it's called because I don't want to spoil anybody. But it just has so much complexity, and there's these memorable themes that just, when you're playing it, I'm like, it doesn't have that sort of, when you hear a really modern sounding soundtrack and then you look at retro graphics and you're like, there's a disconnect here that's making me feel displaced. Chained Echoes doesn't have that. And I think it's partially because of this just brilliant soundtrack.
Yeah, the inspirations for this track feel pretty apparent to me. I definitely get Yasunori Mitsuda, and it kind of reminds me of like the choral tracks that are really prevalent in Xenoblade 2 in particular. I know that this developer, the developer expressed that he was inspired by Xenogears. The composer is a different person, but I have to imagine that they were at least on the same page for their inspirations, partially. But I definitely get a Mitsuda vibe mixed with maybe like something evocative of Andrew Reverse's work on Tangle Deep.
Yes.
I just sort of get like I don't even know what adjectives I need to use here to describe that. I hate to always just say like, it reminds me of X Game, but the influences are apparent, but like you said, Stephen, it doesn't have that displacing effect of making me feel like I'm looking at a pixel art RPG that has this like sweeping orchestral score that just doesn't seem to gel. The thing for me that stood out the most in this track as original was there's like a modulated effect on the choir at about 2 minutes, 20 seconds in. I thought that was really unique and really cool, and made that track stand out from the games that it was obviously inspired by.
That's a really great point, and that actually segues into something I wanted to say about it, which is that I actually talked to Eddie about this song a little bit, because I told him that I was going to pick the song and that I really loved the soundtrack.
Oh, so you just know him? You just know the guy?
No. We're mutuals on Twitter, and we followed each other for a while.
Okay.
We're fans of each other's work. Not like I don't know the guy, but he was nice enough to give me some comments about this track, and he had told me that in particular on the soundtrack there are 3 songs that he has found particular personal meaning in, which isn't to say that they're not still imbued with the flavor and character of the game world, but that they have this sort of additional meaning to him, and this is one of them. And forgive me, this is going to be, I think this is a little bit of a sad story, but also a very moving sort of tale about how art can help you cope. But the song to him represents the acceptance of the inevitable. And again, I don't want to comment on his own personal emotional state, but his grandmother was in failing health when he was writing this song, and he had to come to accept that she was going to pass soon. And so the song starts out kind of serious, and then it sort of bleeds into that boys' choir that follows through most of the track. And he saw the choir as the sort of repeated chanting as this realization of what is to come slowly becoming evident. And as the instrumentation evolves, as that phrase is repeated throughout the song, and like you mentioned, Derek, at like around 2:20, he actually saw that it's sort of a struggling to accept that realization, even though you're going to have to, like, that something inevitable is coming, and you can't, and that you are going to have to accept it. It's not a question of if, but when. And so the ending part of the song sort of calls to mind acceptance for him, and that's some of the effects like the automated filter, the tremolo effect, the heavy reverb that sort of starts to take over the choir while that bell comes in. He wanted it to sound like a voice fading into nothing. And that's the end of what he had told me. But I really found that striking because that is sort of the impression that I got as I listened, and I think that sort of emotionality was conveyed to me without even knowing the story initially. And just that end part, I really love the end part of the song as it sort of fades out. And that goes back into my comment where I said that these songs feel like they are eliciting the same sort of emotions as the game world itself. And again, I haven't heard this track in the game yet, so I don't want to comment too much on that without, I don't know precisely what that is, but that it's sort of a broader comment I have about the whole soundtrack. And then my much less quote-unquote informed comment is it also kind of reminds me of Zeal from Chrono Trigger.
Okay, I was going to say that to start, but I decided not to. I'm glad you did.
It totally does. It has that same sort of floating, just amazing vibe. I'm going to just fall into the words that my brain says. It's amazing and great, and I love this track. And everyone should go buy the soundtrack.
Is good song. And the game itself seems pretty solid, too. I've only played like 2 hours of it, but aside from not being able to turn off my editor's eye and wanting to fix the script, the game itself seems really solid.
I know it's so hard to play anything now where, like, again, this is not, and I'm sure you didn't mean it this way either. This is not to impugn the work of particularly a single person writing a game, because it's hard. Making a game is impossibly hard. And, when we say things like, I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, I really wanted to edit that line. It's not because the line is bad. It's just because that's literally what I do all day long. So every line I see, I'm like, how could I rewrite that?
Occupational hazard. Like I cannot stop my brain from going into that mode when I read anything. That's where I go.
I mean, even with like people who are, I won't get off topic too long here. Even with people who are like my personal professional writing heroes, sometimes I'm like, I wouldn't have written it like that. And then I'm like, how dare I? But anyways, yes, point being, I think Eddie did a phenomenal job on this soundtrack, and I was so happy that it came out in time for me to do it on this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I don't want to say too much about it since it's not done yet, but I think by the time this goes up, our review will be done, and the person we have reviewing it is very, very, like, she keeps talking in Slack about like, oh, well, this is great and this is great. So I'm expecting the review of the game to be really positive too. So
right on.
Yeah.
I cheated and peeked at your Music of the Year picks, and somebody also picked another track from Chained Echoes. I think it might have been you.
It was me, yes.
Yeah, it was you. So stay tuned for things that have already happened by the time you hear this.
Yeah, so this will be our second song from this game already on the show, but I'm glad there's another one because there's, 50 tracks or something? I mean, there's a lot here worth listening to.
Yes.
I'm really glad you reached out and got that story, because on the Bandcamp page for the album, sometimes I just go and read the notes and the special things, but he has this whole list of like people he thanked and all that. He mentioned a little bit about his grandma. Like he mentioned that she passed during this, but I didn't know it was like this particular song related to that. So that's like just gave me a whole different respect and perspective on the song. So that was really interesting.
Yeah, and again, I think he's probably going to listen to this. So I just wanted to say thanks to Eddie again for being nice enough to write such detailed comments to a random person like me, so I could talk about your song.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, thank you from all of us. You touched on a bunch of things I was going to mention. Like, I don't want to repeat or echo too much what you were saying, but I got the same thing you guys did a little bit, where I like that there is like, it's somewhere between a 16-bit and PlayStation style, because I guess the idea with the game was that the game is meant to visually be like a 16-bit game, but the music was meant to be like PlayStation era inspired. And like I got that from this song anyway, or from the soundtrack anyway, before I even read that, where it's like there is some like 16-bit feel there, but like you said, it's its own identity. But then the vocals and the choir and stuff like that, like things that you really couldn't have done as well anyway on the Super Nintendo. So I like it. I like that it harkens back to like two eras, but still manages to be its own thing. It's very, very interesting.
Agreed.
Yeah. So listen to the soundtrack. Eddie, if you're listening to this and want to come on the show, let me know. That could be a fun chat in the future.
Little Blue.
Yeah. So Ghost Song has been a game. I wish I had looked it up before now, but boy, that game was in development for a very, very long time. Back when I was coming up with like concept designs for redoing RPGFan in 2018 or something, or maybe even before that. Might have been before that. I just put placeholder art, and I kept putting Ghost Song in there because that's when we were talking about it. And Rob and I talked about it a lot. And she's like, this game, one of these days will come out. And it definitely took a while, but from what I'm seeing, like it was worth the wait. It's this really, really cool atmospheric, like alien world. It's a Metroidvania, but it has way more, from what I've seen, like way more RPG elements than I thought. Because like RPG Fan will cover Metroidvanias, but only if they fall more towards the Castlevania Symphony of the Night style game. And it has stats and equipment, and the combat's interesting, but just what really does it for me, outside of all of the gameplay and what I've experienced playing the demo, is just the world and the atmosphere is just so like creepy and haunting and beautiful. And when I started listening to the music, I'm like, this, like, it captures that perfectly. The tricky thing for me for this episode was, I don't know why I keep doing this to myself, but like last year for Music of the Year, I brought on a song from Moonglow Bay by Lena. Is it Lena Rain?
Lena Rain?
Is it
I'm
Lena?
Not sure if it's Lena or Lena.
Shoot. Well, no, I'm not winning any fans here. Anyway, but the music for that game is really good. I know when the game first came out, like it had some bugs, and I'm hoping it's been fixed by then or by now. But in any case, it's one of those really interesting, like, atmospheric soundtracks, and I struggled so much to find like a single song, because my recommendation in the end was basically listen to the whole album. And that's kind of the case here too, where like I love this song, and I think this song does do a lot of things that will give you a sense of like why I like the album in general, but it's so cohesive, and just the atmosphere and the world and everything it presents, it's hard to get that out of one song. So like, of course, listen to all of it, but this Little Blue, I think, really does showcase a lot of things that I like about it. I was looking at the Bandcamp page, and I was like, there's a comment on Bandcamp that really like summarizes this. Then I saw it was by Pat, who of course reviewed the soundtrack and game for us. I'm like, oh yeah, there it is. That's the comment.
Of course.
And he talks about how it's like it actually does this thing where it's like it's powerful but also chill at the same time. Just the way it does. He does instrumentation here, so it's really interesting to me.
I would describe this song as comfortably melancholy.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like I'm looking at the stars on a summer night, just laying down, drinking in the darkness with the dots of light. I'd feel the width of the universe unfolding before me, but I don't feel afraid when I hear it. It's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I just love that you mentioned the stars, because you keep saying things that segue into what I want to comment on too really well.
Right on.
In that I got and this is, again, I hate to always use relativism when I describe these things, but the track really reminded me of something I would hear in Endless Space or No Man's Sky. Both games full of stars. And the sort of quiet piano in it, I don't have the musical vocabulary to describe what's happening with the piano, but that sort of distorted piano just has such an evocative and calming effect that I love, that is also what I really liked about some of the night themes in Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild's night themes weren't quite as distorted in terms of what's happening to the piano sounds, but putting me in a similar headspace.
Yeah, they're very minimal.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it's minimal, but the effect is maximal.
Yes,
which is and
nice.
I think obviously I think probably composers could say better than I why that is the case, but I think sometimes when you have that minimalism, it's not dividing your focus up amongst different parts of a song, which when they come together can give you a really strong effect in more complicated songs. But in a simpler song, or a song that is not doing as much in a given second of music, your focus is sort of drawn to the few sounds you are hearing.
The liner notes describes some of the things. I'm not going to read all of them, but like as like a warm felt piano, broken test equipment, and like just really like strange things. I'm like, okay, I get that. Like that actually really does strangely describe like what we're listening to here. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys liked it. I definitely recommend, you can listen on Bandcamp, and I think actually the composer even has the entire soundtrack up on YouTube just for free, which, it's very nice.
Love that.
Yeah. Like I definitely recommend listening to the whole thing. There's also, and I'm going to link our review here in the show notes, but because Pat linked this in the review, but along with the soundtrack, they also released a lo-fi remix, a lo-fi of this, It's like a half-hour video, like just of a bunch of different songs in like a lo-fi style as well, which is also a really cool listen.
AKA what I translate every video game to, lo-fi albums.
Exactly. Well, I don't have a good segue for going from lo-fi to Falcom. So
to
if someone
hi-fi.
This is we're fighting now, Mike. We're fighting Mike, and this is our first skirmish.
Yeah. Okay, so I chose these tracks because I'm a sucker for dynamic music in games. I love it when music changes while you're listening based on the situation. The first time I remember experiencing such a thing was in the original Nier, when Song of the Ancients is playing in the town, the main town that you live in. You hear the instrumental version of Song of the Ancients, and then as you get closer to the town square, you hear, oh God, I can never remember, Popola, whichever of the two sisters is singing. She's playing the song on her guitar, and as you approach her, you can hear her vocals. So,
yeah, it's a very cool effect.
Yeah, so this is an example of that. This plays in Kuro no Kiseki when you're fighting. It's the regular battle theme. This game has a hybrid battle system where it actually starts out as an action-based battle system, and you can like dodge roll and sling out your attacks by pressing buttons quickly, which is totally different for the Trails series. And then after you've landed some attacks, or whenever you want, but the idea is you land some attacks and then you press a button to open the shard, which is the name of the second track. And this turns it from an action-based combat system into a turn-based battle system. And you're basically like building up attacks, or sort of like building up a resource. I forget exactly how it works. And once you're in the turn-based system, what you did during the action-based system will help your attacks do some more damage. And you can switch back and forth as you need to. So I really like that this song... The reason why I played both of them is because they change dynamically from one to the other based on whether you're in the action-based system or the turn-based system. I like this song / pair of songs because I think this is a lower stakes feeling battle theme for the Trails series after the Cold Steel arc just sort of kept building the intensity higher and higher for 4 games, I guess 5 if you count Trails into Reverie. It just felt like everything was getting more epic, more extreme, bigger all the time. And First Skirmish and Open the Shard feel like a little bit of a soft reset. Like this is a new arc in the series. There are new characters. It's a new place. Like let's scale things back just a little bit. So while I don't think these are the most like amazing, bombastic battle themes of all time or anything, I like what they represent, and I really like the way that they function in-game, switching from one to the other.
It's funny that you mentioned that that's what you liked about them, because that's something I observed about both tracks too. There's like a bouncy vibe to them that reminds me of 90s anime, which I think is something that happens with a lot of Falcom music. I think it's clear there's a lot of inspiration happening there. And having been playing Trails from Zero recently, even that, I know that is technically its own new continuity as well, or at least it's new, a new set of characters. Mm-hmm. Even that actually had a little bit of melodrama to some of the tracks, which I liked. But the bounciness of this really of these 2 tracks really called me back to like Wild Arms 1 and Wild Arms 2, or like in particular Open the Shard. There was a very like Noriyuki Iwadare, Grandia 2 sort of flavor to it.
Oh yeah.
That just, it's hard not to just think about those big bubbly eyes of 90s anime and just get into that spirit when you hear tracks like this, which is funny because it has very modern anime art style. But I think the music really brought me back to kind of an earlier time in anime and JRPG music.
Yeah, it's upbeat, and I would say that these songs don't like take themselves super seriously. It's not like some battle themes where it's like, this is a clash between light and dark, life and death. These are just like, all right, we're going through the sewers killing some rats, and it's like, it's anime.
Right, we're hanging out with our friends, power of friendship, right?
Yeah.
Not the stuff that comes after, where it's power of friendship versus the annihilation of the universe, and
that'll happen later
or something. Yeah,
this is Falcom, so they'll get there, I'm sure.
Right.
I'm really glad you brought something from this, because I definitely cannot keep up with some of the Falcom soundtracks, but when we were voting on our music of the year for the site, I was like going through the list, and I figured like, well, I should like catch up on some of these, like check out some of the soundtracks this year that I missed and haven't listened to, which is also, by the way, where my next track came from. So I was listening to the soundtrack on this one, like I came across this, but like so many of the songs in this, I think is, it's good. That's all I have is good. No, like I was really impressed by it because I think for me, like certain Summon Trails games, I'm like hit or miss that work for me anyway in terms of music. Mm-hmm. But I was really pleased with everything I heard for this one. Like I didn't listen to everything yet, but there's a lot of great music in this one.
And what song is that?
What song is what?
The one you're talking about right now? Oh, the ones in Trails.
Oh yeah, in Trails. Okay. No. I'm not segueing to mine already. Like I was just saying, like I thought you were. My bad.
Oh
no. I'm just saying, like that's also how I came across my next song. While like doing research for Music of the Year, I was like, okay, well let me check this one out too. So yeah, I mean, I can't really add much besides what you said here either. But I like that you brought this on, even though you technically cheated bringing 2 songs. I understand why you did. So I'll allow it this time.
I'm a born rebel. What can I say?
I'm a loner, Dottie, a rebel.
Hopefully we get, like, I'm sure at some point we will get this game localized, but I know they're really busy localizing some other games that, people have been waiting on for like, a decade. So I imagine it'll happen at some point, and I know they're doing a lot of work now. So, no shade there.
I'm confident it'll come out here eventually. I say that without insider information. I'm confident it'll come out in English.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Well, both of them. Because there's 2, and I'm not sure if they're just going to be a
Kudo
third one.
1 and 2.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
Probably. So yeah. No, I mean, a great one. This is actually another one. Like I'm surprised. Like some publishers are good about this, and some are square. But I'm surprised that you can pretty easily find this one on YouTube. So like you can at least check it out before you buy. And
yeah, Falcom is a rare company that actually puts all of their music out onto English platforms as well. Like you can buy, whenever a Falcom soundtrack comes out, you can buy it on like American iTunes the day of release, which I always appreciate because as somebody who primarily consumes Japanese video game music, that can get pricey.
Yes,
it sure can, especially if you like Square Enix music.
Yeah. I didn't know.
They have figured out that we'll pay for it.
Mm-hmm. I knew their stuff was available here. I didn't actually realize it was day one, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, they have a lot, if not all of it, on Apple Music as well. So if you have a sub, and Spotify, so if you have a sub, you can just listen to it. It's just there.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, since I've now referenced my next game twice, maybe we can go on to block 2, huh?
Let's do it.
So I unfortunately
talk about Bubsy.
I unfortunately don't know the official name of this because it's listed as one thing on YouTube, and the track list on VGMDB is completely different. So I don't even know which one it is. According to YouTube, this is ScalCap's theme. Sure. This is from the Atelier online game, the mobile Atelier game that was born and died in less than a year. And then the soundtrack came out after.
That's the sad fate of quite a few online JRPG spin-offs these days.
It definitely is, but it's another one I'm like, I haven't heard that one yet. I know this series music, although this is very different from what I was expecting. So I'm excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, it looks like it's composed by Ace.
It is Ace.
Exciting.
Very also unexpected. So
Ace, but not Ace Plus.
Not Ace Plus.
All right. Okay.
So ScalCap's theme, or whatever this one's actually called, but that's what I'm playing. And then after that, we're going to another mobile game. This one is from you, Derek.
Yeah, another game that has was born and died, and then its soundtrack came out.
Yeah.
Wow. I am playing you a track from the Gone Too Soon, but not really because the game was actually pretty rough. Tales of Luminaria original soundtrack. This is Battle 1. Wow, what a name. By composer Go Shiina. And this track, I think, showcases some of the potential that was inherent in Tales of Luminaria that was just bogged down by an incredibly unfortunate interface and gameplay sort of loop. But man, this song goes hard, and I hope you enjoy it. And Steven, what did you bring?
What did I bring? So surprising probably to some people considering how much I've complained about this series. I brought a track from Yakuza Like a Dragon. This is the boss theme Triplet after Triplet, and I have many things to say about it that I will mostly say after the fact, but it is a near final boss theme, and I think it is representative of all of the best qualities of Like a Dragon soundtrack.
Fun fact, Steven, you know why they call the main character of this game Ichiban?
Is it because he's number one?
Because he's number one in my heart, baby. Let's listen.
You're number one in my heart.
Thanks, Steven. You too. And also Mike was there.
Good. I enjoy being number 2. Thank you. All right.
Number 2 tends to last longer than number 1.
You're both my number ones. Okay, let's listen to the music and go.
Well, now that I have gotten scatological, it's time to listen.
So I generally like all of the Atelier games music to one degree or another. Not that they're entirely like breezy and chill, but like that is a common component amongst like, parts of the albums, and at least a lot of the standouts for me. And I think the composers deliver like really quality work, especially given how many of those games we get now. I mean, I'm not sure if we're quite at the annual schedule, but if not, it's pretty close. But even though I generally try to follow that as much as I can, I was not aware that Atelier Online, which, as we mentioned, like was introduced and went away, I think earlier this year, I think March. I think the game shut down in March. And then a little bit later, the soundtrack came out. Had music by Ace, which I had no idea. So I started listening to this, and I'm like, this is really good, but it's a very different sound than I was expecting. And I have no idea how many people even know about it, given how short-lived the game was. But this one's just really like the soundtrack overall features like an Irish harp and fiddles and violins and Irish flute. So I was listening. I'm like, this is like an Irish kind of thing, right? I'm like, yes, it's literally an Irish harp. I don't know what's different about an Irish harp versus other harps, but I was attuned enough to know that it had that sound, and it's just so much fun. I mean, there's this. I was down between like this and like 2 or 3 other tracks. They're just great. Again, like I keep saying, like I recommend listening to all of it, but really just a really fun like Irish Celtic kind of energy going on here. So I had to bring it on.
Yeah, that's very typical of Atelier. It's like doing a jig on your enemy's grave.
And then you make a nice little potion to speed yourself up.
Yeah, or a pie.
Yeah, it's funny we mentioned Xenoblade 2 vibes earlier. I get a lot of Xenoblade 2 flavor from this, actually, like as a sort of folksy tone to it that I don't know who else was involved with the soundtrack. I didn't have a chance to look that up. But Ace being Ace's CHiCO and TOMOri Kudo. And I in my brain, it's funny, I'm going to talk about crediting a little bit, but it's funny because in my brain I'm always like, oh yeah, Mitsuda and Miriam are the ones who are adding that Celtic flavor, but it's not always the case, right? Unless they're involved in this too, which case maybe they are. I don't know. But
just Ace, by the way.
Yeah, I liked this track. Yeah, this is Ace. This is not Ace Plus.
The whole album is listed like Ace. Composer is listed for the whole album. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Which is also wild if you think about it, because the Ace is so prolific. Because they'll do these Xenoblade soundtracks, and I don't have personal experience writing music, but I've talked to composers about how long that can take, and I'm like, they have there's been a Xenoblade coming every couple of years right now, so for them to be pumping out the amount of music that they're doing on Xenoblade in addition to other projects is wild. I mean, it could be that this stuff was written long before that, given that the game's particular rise and fall, but I just think it's so, on top of being a great song on its own, it just makes me think of how impressive it is, the amount of music and like musical ideas that these artists can have in a relatively short amount of time.
All I'd really add to my commentary of this track is it has the elements that I think are quintessentially Atelier, which are feeling upbeat but still rustic and kind of pastoral. I think Atelier games tend to have kind of a country vibe, and when I say country, I don't mean like American country music like Garth Brooks. I just mean like I think of the sort of the Japanese boonies when I think of Atelier, or maybe even the French countryside a lot of the time. And I think this song embodies that.
Baguette and fields, if you will, as a vibe.
Yeah.
All right, I like that. Much better than the other kind of country. So thank you for clarifying.
For me, at least, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I when I listened to it, I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm probably not gonna play this game just for the music. But I figured, like, I just opened the App Store. I'm like, I'll just check it out. And then, of course, I'm like, oh, it's not there.
Yeah, you're not gonna play the game.
They were like, actually, you will not.
You will not. Just listen to it.
You will not be hearing this in context.
Yeah.
Get on YouTube. Well, that's basically what you have to do for my second pick of the day, Battle 01 from Tales of Luminaria. You can also get this soundtrack. I believe I have it on Apple Music, so I think it's on streaming services as well. Man, this song makes a fire rise in my breast. Sword in hand, I'm ready to fight. This song goes incredibly hard, I think, for just a regular ass battle theme in a now defunct mobile game. Glad that this was composed by Go Shiina. I have been not quiet, loud, in fact, about my feelings for the Tales series music by Motoi Sakuraba. Being a little hyperbolic, but I think that Motoi Sakuraba is a very boring composer these days. I think that Sakuraba has put out some great tracks, but I think Sakuraba's heyday has passed, and that we are generally getting the same music over and over, repackaged for more modern Tales games, whereas I think every time they let Go Shiina take the reins, it is way more dynamic and interesting than anything Sakuraba's doing. Sorry, not sorry. So I'm glad that Go Shiina had the chance to score this. It's just a shame that the game is now in the App Store recycle bin.
It's interesting too, because I generally agree that I feel Go Shiina is the future of the Tales series music, and of many soundtracks that Go Shiina has been involved with. Just a wonderful composer, and I actually like this better than the battle theme from Tales, the main battle theme from Tales of Arise. I think that game is trying to do something a little different. It was definitely trying to sort of step out of the mold that the series had been in terms of its tone and its musical stylings, to some extent. But as a result, I actually felt like the main battle theme in Tales of Arise was kind of weak, and I kind of can't even remember it. And I had heard this track before, and this is such a awesome battle theme. And it's, again, I don't think Go Shiina's work on Arise was bad by any means, but it's such a shame that you have this incredible battle theme here that no one's going to hear anymore unless they dig it up on YouTube. And I mean, that's, to be honest, that's kind of a critique you could level at all of the Tales mobile games, because they are just steamrolling through them. And I can't comment on that too much, but I've worked on a few of them, and it's amazing to see this flash in the pan of, wow, this game came out and I worked on it and it has cool music and it's gone.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, there's another one, and then it's such a shame to see all this great music like this track just relegated to YouTube. And like, thankfully it's at least, like I think you said, it's on Apple Music. Thankfully it's there so that people can appreciate it, and the people who made it, well, this is very optimistic of me to say, the company who owns it can make money off of it. But yeah, it's just such a shame to hear like incredible music from a composer like Go Shiina, who I think has been getting more notoriety on the Tales series of late, just sort of gone.
Yeah. And
the other thing, like, with those games like being just churned out and like shut down so much, is like, even though you can still get the music, which is a plus, a lot of people want to hear the music in context and like see how it plays in the game, and you don't have that option.
Yep.
So
it is a shame.
But hey, I mean, at the very least, I'm glad we can still listen to it. So, what's the current Tales game? Like, I even lost track. What's the current Tales mobile game?
It's gone now.
Oh,
so
okay. There isn't one.
Oh, it was. I mean, it was Luminaria. I guess there's Tales of the Rays. Is that still going in Japan?
Rays is going in Japan. It ended service in the U.S. I worked on that one, and I believe it's still going in Japan. I haven't actually kept up with it. And then Crestoria came out after Rays. Did Luminaria come out after Crestoria?
It did.
See, it's confusing.
Oh my gosh, yeah. My setting my professional opinion aside from here, I'm like, I don't know that it's a great idea to release and kill games at that speed when you're trying to get people to invest in them.
Yeah, where's the incentive? Like, where's the security of being like, oh, I'm really interested in this world. I want to spend money to get a cool party lineup or whatever. Like, I don't know. There's just no reason to spend money if you know that the game is going to just be deleted from the universe.
Yeah.
Also, it sucks to get invested in a story. Like, I don't want to start a storyline and then have it just pulled out from under me and then never be able to see the resolution. Which is why I'm glad that Tales of Crestoria is at least getting a manga to finish its story off, but that feels like
cool.
a Band-Aid to me.
Yeah, well, at least it's not nothing. But I think while I am still sad that Dragalia got sunset, Dragalia, at least, they went all out for that finale.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm so happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, like, even not as a person who worked on it, as somebody who just appreciates how many fans that game had, it's just great to see that, like, they were like, oh, we're gonna at least send everybody off with, we're gonna finish the story and like reward people who have been here for all those years.
Yeah, I'm glad they did that too.
Yeah, I'm no longer associated with Dragalia, and I wasn't even, I had left the project shortly before the ending stuff came about, but I'm still crossing my fingers that there is some kind of, I don't know, follow-up or way to preserve this game. Like, there's just so much writing in that game that we worked so hard on that is going to disappear into, or rather has disappeared into nothingness, with the only preservation being people like archiving it on wikis. I just feel that game deserves so much more, but that's definitely coming from a very personally invested perspective.
Yeah, I know nothing, and I couldn't say if I did, but I do agree that it would be really nice if there was some way to sort of preserve all that stuff. Like, I mean, you can thankfully watch the story on YouTube at least, but there's the work of all those excellent actors and stuff. Anyways, I'm veering off topic here, but we should stop canceling our mobile games, and when we do, we should find a way to preserve them.
Yeah, or let's maybe invest in better mobile game life cycle planning, so that it's not just soulless money grabbing gotcha that causes them to disappear when they don't perform well enough to these ridiculous standards.
Yeah, I mean it's too bad too. Like, even when you have stuff like Dragalia, or for me, mine for several years was Record Keeper.
Mm-hmm.
If there was just a way to repackage them or re-release them, just in an offline format, just sell it as a standalone thing even. I don't know. Didn't they do that, or aren't they doing that with Kingdom Hearts? They're keeping the Kingdom Hearts game around, but as an offline mode, once it's done. But I'm not sure exactly how they're doing that.
Oh, the Kingdom Hearts Chi game?
Yeah, I mean, the one that keeps getting renamed, so I lose track of what it's called. Yeah.
I can't follow anymore.
I thought they were planning on doing something like that. So it won't be online anymore. It's that's, if it's possible, why not do it, But yeah, I don't know. Music.
Steven, you presented a third track in this block.
I did present a third track. I almost forgot. So if you've played Yakuza Like a Dragon, you probably remember this track, but it's called Triplet After Triplet, which it plays in the fight. Can I talk about spoilers? Can we put a spoiler warning? Do you guys care if I spoil?
You can at least talk in vague-ish terms, right?
Right.
Yeah, I guess the problem is that a lot of my comments are kind of deeply invested in a core spoiler to Like a Dragon.
Oh. I mean, it doesn't bother me so much, even though I do intend on playing it at some point, but someone listening. But you've been warned now.
Yeah, you've been warned now.
Yeah, maybe come back in 2 or 3 minutes if you don't want to hear spoilers for Yakuza Like a Dragon.
So it plays in the fight against Yosuke Tendo, who turns out to have murdered your biological father in Yakuza 7, and he's a character that's sort of very heavily involved in the Yakuza power struggles that define the latter half of the story. And in terms of the music itself, I actually have less to say beyond I just love the vibe. Yakuza 7 has this wild selection of songs, and the battle themes in particular are just so pumping and exciting, and just make you, particularly the main battle theme, it just makes you want to go punch somebody in the face, but in a fun way, not in an angry, aggressive way. Which is kind of the vibe of that game. A lot of the violence, except when it doesn't. All the violence in that game is fun violence until it's serious violence. And I really feel like this track captured the emotional moment. So it plays in the penultimate final boss. And I just feel like it captured that moment of this is the person who killed your father, which is, very significant for Ichiban as a character. And, I actually have a lot of criticisms of Yakuza 7's story, it being the only game in the series I've played besides Part of Zero. And I think the clash with the main villain falls pretty flat after this moment, because there's so much emotional heft here that personally affects your character, and then it sort of feels like there's switcheroos and gotchas and stuff that turn the other character into the main villain. But it's such an evocative moment because you're in this giant tower and there's lightning striking and your whole party is fighting this total dude who if I recall, he rips his shirt off, but a lot of shirts get ripped off in Yakuza, so actually you might also rip off your shirt. I can't remember, but
yeah, that's just a Tuesday in the world of Yakuza.
Yeah, for Ichiban and Costco, that's just that it was Tuesday.
Also for Derek, but I think that's also what Derek does on Tuesdays.
Right, yeah, of course.
Right, Tuesdays is casual Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so hard to I wish I had more to say musically about it. But just that one of the things that I think Yakuza does well, the Yakuza 7 at least, I can't comment on the others, but is this sort of earnest emotion. And I think that shows in every facet of the story, and I think even the things I would criticize about the game aren't coming as a result of ineptitude or some other thing. I think it's just that everything about those games is so earnest, and I really feel like that comes to a head in Like a Dragon. Like, that game just desperately wants you to love its cast, and I think it's successful with some of them, and it wants you to really feel the emotions that, in particular, Ichiban is feeling. And so, like, this is just the perfect song for that, because it's just like this super dramatic showdown, and you're beating on the guy who killed your father, and like, it's so cool.
Well, that's what I think Ichiban represents as a protagonist versus Kiryu. Like, I know Kiryu is a very beloved character. I like him too. He's stoic, but he's emotional when it counts. But like, Ichiban wears his heart on his sleeve, and he couldn't hide his emotions if he tried. Right. And that's what I find so endearing about him, is he is so incredibly earnest at all times. And so, in this song, I get that. And also it the reason why I like a Dragon in particular is it allows me to live out my escapist fantasy of being a hot dumbass who loves Dragon Quest. Like, that's just
is that escapism for you, or just reality?
That's just reality. Yeah, I love. Oh, right. Wait, you think I'm a dumbass?
Oh, wait, no, not that part.
No, a lovable kind.
Right. Yeah. No, I love Ichiban. I'll be the soft dissenter and say that I don't love this song from a musical perspective. It's a little like dubstep wubby for me. I wouldn't listen to it in isolation, but I can understand the emotion that's packed into the song, and I think it's fitting for what it appears to, or like for the purpose it serves. I think it works. Yeah, your song sucks, Steven.
Yeah, no. I
take that.
I enjoy it. I love how intense and energetic it is, and now that I think we're done talking about spoilers. Yeah, I'm gonna play the game at some point. Even though I just had the second to last boss spoiled for me, but that's okay. I understand why you had to say it though, because the context is important.
Yeah, I think Like a Dragon it's my favorite Yakuza game. I've actually never beaten a Yakuza game. The closest I've come was Like a Dragon. I think I've bought most of them over the years, and Like a Dragon I got to like the penultimate chapter before I think there was a big difficulty spike, and I ended up just kind of throwing in the towel. Yeah. But man, the turning Yakuza into an RPG is the best decision they've ever made for that franchise.
It's so great, yeah.
It's so fun.
I'm glad they're keeping that going, but also having other games in the old style, because, why not? Everyone wins then.
Yeah, everyone wins. That's right.
That's true.
All right. Speaking of winning, we have one more block. That's a horrible segue.
We do. You know who else wins, Mike? Heroes. After Heroes have a heroic struggle.
That's true.
Heroic Struggle is the name of the track that I have selected for our third and final block today. This is a track from the HD2-Day remake of Live Alive, the Super Famicom RPG that never made it out into English until now in 2022. Man, what a game. I absolutely love this remake so much. And I have selected the battle theme from the Middle Ages chapter with the character Orsted. I could have picked Megalomania because Megalomania is an unbelievably awesome track, but it is also kind of the signature track of Live Alive. And I think if you've ever heard music from the game, like that's the song that you've heard. So I thought I'd pick something a little bit different, and this is probably on par with that for me as my favorite battle theme from the game. What a track. I hope that you enjoy it as well. Mike, you've also selected a track that plays during a battle.
I did. I want to say briefly, I'm would have let you do Megalomania, but I admit that I'm glad you didn't. Only because we have this date. Actually, I'm not sure you know about this. We actually have a database of every song that's been on Rhythm Encounter. Because now that we have more and more songs, we try not to repeat if we can help it. And Live Alive has been on the show 4 times, and 3 of those were Megalomania. So it's a fantastic song, and this is a new version. But like, I'm glad we're getting something different here.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Anyways, yeah. So after Heroic Struggle, I have In the Balance from Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker.
Yep, that's exactly how the song goes.
None of us have played that.
Nope.
Clearly.
Definitely not. Anyway, yeah, I'll talk about it after. So that's what I have, In the Balance. Steven, what is your final track today?
In the Balance is not my final track. I don't know why I started saying that. So I don't actually know the name of this track. because the Xenoblade 3 soundtrack has not come out yet. But this is the main villains of the game, Mobius. We'll avoid spoilers, but this is a battle theme that plays with one of the Mobius members, and it is really cool. And I have things to say about it regarding the cool stuff they did with flutes, and it's time to listen to it. Ha, segue.
I love it. That was so smooth.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, let's go listen to our final 3 songs.
Let's battle, baby. and what a heroic struggle all three of those songs were. My track from Live Alive, the HD remake, like I said, I picked this song because I didn't want to do the usual Megalomania, which is an amazing song, but I thought we could taste a little different flavor. In this song, the synth harmony that goes underneath the main sort of like the main progression of it. Wow, that's what a harmony is, Derek. That's my favorite part. The part that goes do 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 do. Yeah. So see, this is me using professional music vocabulary. The part that goes do 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 is my favorite.
I love it.
So you have so many battle themes in Live Alive. There's one for every protagonist of this game, of which there are 8. And all of those battle themes are clearly themed around that character or the area or the era where they take place. And then you get this song. This song is for the 8th chapter of the game and the 8th main character, which you only unlock after doing the other 7 first. And what I like about this is that this chapter is themed after the Middle Ages, and it's just sort of like a straightforward classic JRPG story, with twists, which I won't go into. So you just kind of get like this full-on classic RPG battle theme here. It's got a real sense of drama and moving forward, and it's just what you would expect, I guess, from a story that takes place in this era. And I like it for that reason, because I think that it still has its own unique identity despite being sort of the most straightforward conceptually of all the battle themes in Live Alive.
Yeah, I agree with your assessments there. I think what I love about this song, I mean this whole soundtrack, it's so interesting that this was one of Shimomura's first, because I think it's like one of her best soundtracks ever. And the arrangers did a brilliant job on this. This would have, to me, been an intimidating soundtrack to arrange, because it's so beloved and because it's been talked up, even in the West, where like not as many people have played the game. I think a lot of people, particularly as like retro stuff caught on in the YouTube era, would like hear this music and be like, wow, that game had such cool music. And Shimomura is still very much present in game audio. So to me, I would have been like, how do I ensure that I am maintaining what is so great about these tracks? And that's actually what I love about this arrangement, is that I love the original version of this song too. And it's so interesting to hear it retouched like this, but still maintaining what I think was excellent about the Super NES track, in particular, like the do 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 do, that it's an earworm, and every time I hear it, I'm like, I'm going to be hearing that for the next month in my brain.
Yeah, I actually really like that in the arrangement they chose a different texture for that sound, but it still has the same recognizable attributes of the original song, but it sounds it sounds retextured in a way that I find very appealing, and I like the arranged version better.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we should say it too. The arranger is Noriyuki Kamikura, and I agree with that assessment too, because I think a lot of times not a lot of times, but sometimes you'll have an arrangement of a classic song that has a particularly notable section. Like take for example the Final Fantasy VII main battle theme. That boop 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 boop. A lot of songs try to do interesting things with that particular part of the song because it's so memorable. And some of them, this is my personal opinion, some of them are awesome, like what Crisis Core does. And some of them are a little weaker, like what some of the more, I guess, creative arrangements will do, where they'll choose a texture for that part of the song that actually kind of robs it of its impact. And I don't feel like the choice of how this was arranged did that, the original.
No, that's a good point. I mean, I'm like you, like the idea of, not that I'm a musician or an arranger or anything, but like I can't imagine like what it would be like arranging this. And we were talking a little bit, I think only off air, but about the Pixel remasters earlier. But like to go in and like arrange something like that by these composers that, I'm sure everyone arranging like is very familiar with their work and like have been listening to them for decades. Like that's got to be so intimidating. So it's nice. Mm-hmm. It's nice when something like this comes up and it's like they did such a great job at doing it and preserving that feel, but still delivering something different and like updated. It's very cool.
Definitely agreed. Oh, twin gods bless this land.
Fun fact, watching this, the YouTube video for this song during our little listening break here, was the first time I've ever actually looked at the lyrics for In the Balance.
I actually never had either. And
boy, does that evoke old to a T.
Right?
Yeah. That's so great.
Very catchy song. Huge earworm.
Mm-hmm. We don't always do this, but I actually already set up some of the links for this show, and I put the lyric video. It's it's official lyrics, but it's not actually official video. So we're talking about the lyrics here, but check out the show notes, and we have that video linked in the show notes, along with another fun video about this song, which I recommend people watch. There was pretty much no way that I wasn't going to bring something from Endwalker, which technically is a 2021 game, but the soundtrack came out in 2022. So there was no way I wasn't going to bring that on our Music of the Year episode. And then, of course, we're doing another special episode right after that. So I'm doing it again because there's a lot of songs, and I just gotta keep doing it.
Yeah, because this is your house and you make the rules.
It's true. If I really wanted to be cheeky on Music of the Year, I could have just done 3 Endwalker songs, but I also like talking about other games too. So I just did the one. And then today we have In the Balance, which, oh my God, I love this song so much. I think anyone who's like even a little bit familiar with 14, or at least is up on the game, like probably knows the song by now. You've heard it in game or you've heard it online, because I feel like it's just been really popular since it came out. If you don't know, it's the final battle song, and as of this recording, the current 24-person Alliance raid. Although by the time this comes out, there might actually be the second part out.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but like half the battles in Aglaya are like desert themed. So like the gods that you're fighting here like preside over the underworld and commerce and the sun and fire. I'm talking about like 2 of them interchangeably because why not? But that's half of this raid has that like flame and fire and desert because And the instrumental choices here, again, one of those videos in our show notes, we'll talk about the instrumental choices, and it's so good. Like that and the vocals and the lyrics we were talking about. Obviously I talk about 14 on this podcast a lot, and it's a game just full of incredible music. So it's hard to like sit down and say like, hey, this one song, this is the best song at this thing, because like it's really hard to pick one of anything. But for me, like at this point, especially like I think I can say this confidently because I've listened to it so much and I still feel this way, but I think of all of the Alliance music, the original Alliance music, this is my favorite that they've done ever in the last like 10 years. It's fantastic.
It's really good. Yeah, I mean the whole raid for Aglaya has amazing music. I love they reuse the motif. Gosh, I forget the name of the original song, but it plays when everybody comes back to the source in like the post-Shadowbringer story, and then Alice leaps off the ledge to go fight some kobolds or something. That motif is incorporated into the sort of main battle music in Aglaya. So good. I also wanted to say the singer for this song, their name, I'm not sure their pronouns, is Tea, who is a Tokyo-based award-winning singer and songwriter. And gosh, they just knocked it out of the park.
Oh, yeah.
And what a cool, unique sound.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
The only other raid music I put like is close to this for me is the last one from the Nier series. But if I can separate it by like original versus arrangement, then it's still going to be this one at the top of my list.
I'm with you.
Yeah. I just want to keep listening to it.
Yeah.
And of course, like at this point, because it's been with us for like 6 months, I cannot wait to see what they do musically with the next raid series too. So very much looking forward to that.
Too.
I agree. FF14 is great. They continue to be great, and they have not peaked. Every time it seems like they've peaked, and then they're like, nope, we have more.
Yeah, it's every patch day for FF14 is a holiday for me.
Yeah, it's kind of like every 6 months now. I mean, I guess it's like every 5.
It's 4-ish.
Yeah, you get a whole new Final Fantasy to enjoy again.
Right.
Yeah, it's nice, right? We're very spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of being spoiled, well, we're not going to spoil anything from Xenoblade 3 because that is still very new.
Yeah, you want to talk about a song from the most snubbed soundtrack at the Game Awards this year?
Yeah, no kidding, right? Snubbed. We've been talking about that.
Look, I'm sure Derek can appreciate this as a professional in the game industry. I would never impugn the work of anyone who worked on God of War, because that is a giant game that people love, and like the music is cool, and like Bear McCreary is a good composer, yada yada yada. However, the Game Awards has a documented history of snubbing Japanese games, sometimes. Japanese games not made by Hidetaka Miyazaki.
Not non-Souls games.
Yeah.
Which, don't get me wrong, Sekiro is incredible, and I won't get off on that because I'm not Rob, so I'm not going to start talking about Sekiro now. But, point being, Xenoblade 3 got robbed at the Game Awards. I cannot believe that neither Elden Ring nor Xenoblade ran away with that award. All of the games in that category had cool music and are well deserving of the recognition. But just when you can be like, this soundtrack is 160 tracks and they're incredible and memorable, and you know, maybe the reason that it didn't win the award is because none of the people who voted ever heard any of the other tracks, because the only song you get to hear in the game is the Chain Attack battle theme. But I say that as somebody who loves Xenoblade 3, and this track is so we're gonna avoid spoilers, but this is the boss theme that plays when you fight a member of Mobius, who are basically the villains for much of the game. And this is a particular member of Mobius. And normally the boss theme has a different instrumentation, but this one uses a flute, which I just think is absolutely brilliant. When you first hear this in the game, it's like, oh my god! And it works so well with the story. And like, because they've spent this whole game building up the importance of these flutes in the people's world, and like what the flutes represent, and what the music itself represents, and because the game is so long and you spend so much time with the characters, you really get time to associate these themes with them. And so again, avoiding spoilers, the reason there's a flute in this boss theme is incredible in part of the story. You know, the flutes are actually called the shinobue. It's a Japanese kind of flute. It's a transverse flute made of bamboo, and then they drill holes in it. And I mean, it's been used for a long time, and it's a very traditional instrument. And so there was a really cool interview that Nintendo did with the team, and they talked about it, why they use these flutes. Partially, it was because they needed instruments that the characters could carry into battle and like believably use in battle. I think they made a joke like, you can't carry a double bass into battle. Yeah. And I'm like, well, you could. I've seen some JRPGs where you very much do that, but I think for the more serious tone of this game, it's beautiful. I'm not going to turn this into a dunk on Xenoblade 2 session. I notably do not like that game, partially because, I forgot I'm in a safe place right now.
Yeah, it's okay.
Right. I have a lot of problems with Xenoblade 2. Not the music. The music in Xenoblade 2 is unbelievably good.
Agreed.
I might even think it's a better soundtrack overall than Xenoblade 3. But
agreed.
Tonally, after Xenoblade 2, which is very they're all anime, but Xenoblade 2 has a particular flavor of like kind of bouncy, funny, my little mascot character made a maid robot anime, whereas Xenoblade 3 is very somber. It gets more back to the tone that I loved in Xenoblade 1, and I think it even goes further with that tone in terms of talking about like the value of life and death and what that's all about, right? And so having the flutes be such this beautiful moment, and this is not a spoiler, but for the purpose that the flutes serve in the game world is that there are characters called Offseers, and every group in this world where people are endlessly at war, every group has their own Offseer, and whenever someone dies, the Offseer plays this beautiful song on their flute that is inspired by who they are as a person and their relationships with the people that have died. And so as a mechanic in the game, when you find bodies, you can send them on with the flute, and you'll stop and play one of your two characters who are Offseers will play their flute. And each of the two different characters has a different size of their flute, which is very interesting, and they're tuned to different scales, and that is reflected in the music of their theme songs. And the flute that's in this song is also reflected in, like, the particular flute used in this song is actually reflective of why there is a flute involved in the boss theme. And I just find that it's like galaxy brain level game direction and world design and music design, and it's incredible. You should read the interview with Tetsuya Takahashi and Genki Yokota, and I think possibly Mitsuda, who directed the music for the game. But it's so amazing when you get to this moment, and everything they've done builds that, And this isn't even the end of the game. It's not even. It's like maybe halfway through, and it's you have the different melodies for each. Like Noah, one of the Offseers, has his own melody, and Mio has her own melody. And this boss theme incorporates a melody in such a way that it's really telling you the story and adding to the emotional impact of it. And I think Nintendo, I think, did a video about this, but they made the flutes. They actually had a craftsperson who like makes these kinds of Shinobu Ue flutes, make the flutes, like the actual models of the flutes that Noah and Mio use in the game, and use those to perform the music.
Oh my god, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they made custom flutes for this game.
Wow,
it's crazy.
Yeah, and their art team worked on the designs of the flutes, so the real life flutes match the flutes that the characters use in the game. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this.
It's unreal.
I love the incredible attention to musical detail that went into this, and it pays off. Like not every you don't need to go make a flute. That's a flex, but the people who made Xenoblade are allowed to flex. Yeah. Everybody, but like so it is not necessary for emotional impact to get those flutes. But when you think about, whenever I listen to this song, I am forced to just think about the journey you go through in the game, the musical journey of the soundtrack, the effort they went to create that specific moment. Because you don't hear this battle theme more than once. You hear it just once in the game. And just to think about, you have this giant game full of custom like music, like themes that are specific for certain moments, and it's a giant soundtrack, and all of that went into just creating this specific moment. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's why when I played it, I got goosebumps for that couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Like, it was pretty cool. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on, I don't want to steal everything from you guys, is that Xenoblade was, like all of the Xenoblade games, Xenoblade 3 was composed by a team. I'm going to sound a little ranty here, but I think the industry, well, as a localization person, I know the industry has a problem with crediting, but I think there is this tendency in game audio, particularly with certain classic Japanese composers who are incredible, to attribute all of the genius work to them, and then be like, oh, look at those other 25 names below them who also compose music. Oh, anyways, Mitsuda's a genius. Mitsuda is a musical genius. But this soundtrack was composed by a lot of people. Ace, which is CHiCO and TOMOri Kudo. Kenji Hiramatsu was involved. Manami Kiyota. Miriam Abu-Nasser. I'm going to pronounce that wrong. And Mitsuda, of course. So, like, all of the contributions are incredibly important. But this is my soapbox, if I would for a minute. When you are out there listening to your favorite JRPG music, please, please, please try to pay attention, not just to the big name that was on the box. Yoko Shimomura is a brilliant composer. She is not the only composer on Final Fantasy 15. Masayoshi Soken is a genius. He's not the only composer on FF14. So just remember that a lot of people, and those composers are great at, like, to be clear, they are not trying to steal credit. That's not what we're talking about. I just think with how corporate messaging works, we tend to, it's the same thing we do where we're like, oh yeah, the new Hideo Kojima game. And I'm like, well, him and 600 other people, yes.
Yeah, right.
TLDR, Auto Theory is bad and it doesn't apply to video games. Everybody works on stuff. So soapbox over, step out.
Step out.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like, even for like indie games, like Kickstarter games, like it's really cool seeing like Mitsuda and Kikuta and other people who will contribute. Like, if people hit a certain stretch goal, there's so many indie games that were like, hey, we got some music by this person. And, like, I think that's good for them. Like, it helps them promote their game. But it also makes me a little sad if, like, you start seeing headlines or whatever. It's like, this little indie game is music by Mitsuda. I'm like, no, like, he's doing one song, and that's cool that he's doing that with them. But, like, don't discount the other person who did the other 40. Yeah, I think that's very important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I mean, that happened specifically with, I mentioned Tangle Deep earlier, and I'm pretty sure Hiroki Kikuta did like 2 songs for it or something.
Yeah.
And I want to say that's one of those games where I always see it touted as like, oh my god, Hiroki Kikuta's soundtrack, just like Secret of Mana. And it's like, okay, well, they did like 2 songs. And then there's, how many others? 50? 30?
Well, and it's especially funny because Zircon, Andrew Aversa, made the game.
Yeah.
He's the primary developer of the game and the primary musician. And again, I don't think there's any malice on the part of any of the people involved in doing this.
No, it's marketing.
It's marketing, and it's like there are a billion games out there, and it's hard to get noticed. So if you can say, "Hey, the Chrono Trigger guy did music for us," then people will be like, oh, okay, they'll click on. And then, I think that could be a great thing, because it could be like, oh, maybe they got interested in this Kickstarter project because Mitsuda was involved, and then they saw, oh, hey, this other guy is here, and then they become fans of that guy's music or that person's music. It does not necessarily a guy. So I it's not like I don't understand the complexities of this reality. I think just remember, next time you listen to an awesome song from Final Fantasy XIV, it might not have been Soken who wrote it himself. He definitely had something to do with it, because he's the sound lead on the game. But just remember, he has a team that he works with, that he loves to work with, and we want more music from all of them.
Yep.
Particularly as games get bigger and soundtracks get bigger. It's like one person cannot do 200 songs.
Well, especially when he's working on 14 and 16 at the same time.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
And convalescing, no less.
Yeah, that too.
All I would really add to this specific track that we listened to today is somebody wrote like an essay in the YouTube comments for this song, for the one that I looked up online, the channel Nintendo Melody. This commenter looks like Kirigio, just mentions, it's very spoilery, but I would say if you're interested in some analysis, this person kind of hits the nail on the head. It highlights a lot of complex aspects of this section of story where the song plays, and that is all I will say. They did a great job weaving the flute into this melody and making the flute not just an instrument choice, but also like a meaningful element of the music. Like the flute is there for a reason.
A voice.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The flute is a voice in the song.
Which is, I'm so glad you pointed out that comment. I missed that, and I just read it. That ties into like what Eddie said about the first track we listened to. In that the choir, the choir is literally a voice in that, but also it's serving us a purpose emotionally and narratively that I think is just super cool.
Play Xenoblade 3. Also, we've got an expansion or a new story scenario of some kind coming before the end of 2023 for that game if you've got the season pass. So really excited to see what new music might happen.
Yes, I'm hoping it's something big like Torna.
Me too.
Because I know Torna is really good and I need to play it at some point, but my distaste for Xenoblade 2 meant that I didn't play it.
Oh my god, Torna is so much better.
Yeah, it seems like Torna might be what I wanted from Xenoblade 2, so I'm like, I gotta play it.
It was what I wanted.
I really, yeah, right, exactly. And I haven't finished Xenoblade 3 yet. I'm on the final chapter, so I don't know where it's going to end. Based on what they've introduced, I'm like, what they've been introducing, I'm like, what could this DLC be? And please be what I want it to be.
I'm very unsure of exactly how they'll frame a story expansion based on the ending of the game, but I'm intrigued to see.
We're really feeling it.
I'm really feeling it. I'm really feeling it!
Not good! Ah! Sorry, I played too much Smash.
Not enough Smash. I'm coming over.
Oh, we should.
Well, I haven't played yet, and there's nothing I could say that you didn't say better.
You never played Smash?
No, I haven't played Xenoblade 3.
Featuring Samus from Super Nintendo?
I know. Yes, Metroid, who can crawl.
Metroid can crawl so well.
Yeah, she can.
Speaking of dating ourselves with memes.
It's great for when you come down from above people and you can drop the bombs.
Like Scotty D in Dance Dance Revolution 4th Mix. Anyway.
Wow. I'm going deep into DDR lore now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a cousin to Sunny D, I realize now.
No, Scotty D.
All right. Yeah. Hey, there we are. What are we at now? Wow. 2.5 hour recording. Jono is not going to be happy with me. But I am happy with me, and I'm happy with you guys. This was such a great episode. It was fun to talk to you. Like, in general, it's fun to talk to you all the time, but it's really cool to be able to talk to you about music in this format again. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, great to chat with both of you listeners. I appreciate you indulging our reminiscence. I hope it wasn't too boring for you, but I just want to say thank you to everybody who has listened to all of the podcasts at RPG Fan over the years, whether random, retro, or rhythm. It really means a lot, and your support, especially in those early years when Steven and I were hosting podcasts here, helped. It helped a lot. It made my days better. It bolstered my self-esteem, and everything that I did at RPG Fan sort of galvanized me and made me want to go out into the world and continue working in video games. So I'm very grateful that I can do that, and I'm very grateful for everybody's support along the way. So thanks for listening.
What more could I add to that? Ditto. I not to sound disingenuous,
no.
But that's how I feel as well. I'm very glad to see that the show made it to 100. That's amazing.
Oh yeah.
And I'm glad, I'm glad all the listeners are enjoying it. I'm glad people still, it's interesting because this is going to make me sound old, but whatever. When we started the podcast, digital distribution for game music was like in its infancy.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the thing that came before Louder. I can't even remember, or was Louder the first thing? I literally can't even remember.
Louder was the first. Louder
Yeah.
turned into, well, nothing, I guess, but Louder was before Bandcamp?
Louder turned into everybody got bought by Spotify or whatever.
Yeah.
But, it was like people on YouTube would share their covers, and that was like the avant-garde at the time. And now that's just everyone does that. And I think that's great. The point I wanted to make is that when we started doing it, the whole point was to be part of appreciating game music, because I think on an individual level, everyone did. Like lots of people did, not everyone. I think people really did appreciate it individually, but there wasn't as much conversation about it. And I think with the continuing rise of social media, at least up till now, where it might be crashing, who knows? And
we'll say growth, maybe not rise.
Growth, yeah, the continued growth. Early on, it was the rise of social media.
We'll say infectious spread.
How about that?
Yeah, the infectious spread of social media to all aspects of our lives. No, it I feel like the show has accomplished its goal, and not like it should go away or something. But like, if I'm being reflective, when we did it, it was a case of like, you couldn't just go anywhere and find a music podcast on RPG music. Like now there are YouTube channels and YouTubers who cover game audio all the time. I think some of the comments or some of the show notes for this, they'll talk about Alex Mukala covering the Valence and like breaking it down. There weren't videos like that before. That was not a thing 10-ish years ago. It was a thing in a limited capacity. It did not have, Alex couldn't have done that video and then chat with Silken on Twitter and then, help run a community. Mukala helped put together that community Final Fantasy 14 tribute, right? That they sent to Silken, and like Silken like got warm fuzzies from it. Like that amount of community awareness of video game music was just not a thing when we started it. And I do not think that we encouraged that. I do not think we played a giant part in it, but I think we played a small part in being part of that forefront to moving into a greater appreciation for this stuff, and to allowing the people who make this music to be a little more front and center. Like, not that they weren't front and center before. And again, I'm not saying we did that, but I think having something where you can solely be focused to video game music and being like, let's just listen to this song and talk about how cool it is. But, I think that's an awesome thing. And now it's super common. And I think that's exactly what we hoped for. So, what more to say? I'm rambly, but
no, I mean, it's good. Like that was kind of the more or less the mission statement. And, like you said, like Rhythm Encounter is not that big that we caused any of that, but, we were part of that movement and part of, we were adding to the voices. So, I'm glad. So whatever part we may have played in that, like, that's exciting.
Yeah, and speaking of dated things 10 years ago, just like in Arrested Development, mission accomplished. Actually, I guess that's technically a Bush thing, but
so this is the last.
The show is over. Mission accomplished. Goodbye, everybody.
Arrested Development is the foundation upon which many an RPG fan podcast were built,
and many of your localizations now too.
Yeah.
Earlier, I don't care for Job.
I guess I can't talk about what's coming up next in the show because apparently this is our last episode. That's too bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye forever.
Yeah.
Bye forever, everybody.
Bye forever. Yeah. So one thing we've been doing, a newer thing we've been doing that I've tried to be consistent about is at the end of the episode, I usually just talk about, again, because we like introducing new things, like introducing people to new songs and new albums. We've been talking about like, hey, in this episode, like these were the games or things that like made their debut, like the first time on Rhythm Encounter. And it's almost everything on here. Endwalker's been on here before, and
surprise.
I think that's it. I think everything else on here, I'd have to look. Almost everything else on here is like the first time on the show. So this was a fun episode full of debut songs. So thank you, thank you guys for like such a diverse lineup of music here.
Absolutely,
yeah.
That's the best part. There's an infinite variety of cool game music out there now.
Yeah, and just depending on what day you asked me to contribute to this, I would have picked 3 different songs. So
Yep. If I was having a more corporate day, I would have been like, here's 3 Square Enix songs because Tactics Ogre and Live Alive and Final Fantasy all came out. But I was trying to be a little more niche. I said picking Sega and Nintendo.
Hey, I was about to pick a song from a Sega Mega Drive 2 Japan only arrangement album.
I mean, that's
Oh,
that would have been
man.
good though. Maybe I'll convince you to.
Maybe on episode 200.
Yeah, maybe I'll convince you to come back and you can do that still.
All right.
Yeah. No, I like, Stephen, I like when you were like, I don't really think I'm going to bring something from Xenoblade 3. I'm like, really? Really? I'm glad you changed your mind on that.
Yeah, I thought about it and I was being stupid, so I'm not going to be stupid. And I picked Xenoblade 3.
Hey, speaking of Xeno, actually, episode 101, our next episode after this one is finally a music specifically about the Xeno series. If you can, does it count as a series? Whatever. So any of them are up for grabs. We're going to have people from, whether it's Xenogears, Saga, Blade, like all of those. So
does that include Xeno Crisis?
Maybe.
Sir, what are you saying?
I'm being annoying. It's an arena shooter on Switch.
Okay. No, not that one. But if for some reason someone wants to bring something from like Xenosaga Pied Piper, the mobile phone game, they're allowed to. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to that one. That'll be in a couple weeks, and after that, we're doing transport themes. So whatever people end up doing for that, airship, hovercrafts, whatever your vehicle transportation themes are. I think that'll be a fun one that somehow we've never done. So yeah, those are our next 2 episodes. So look forward to that. I can't say anything in particular yet, but especially in my head, I'm like, that we've hit 100. Like I want to do some new stuff with the show. I don't know what that is yet. I have some thoughts. Maybe I want to try like maybe collaborating with some other video game music shows, like coming up sometime this year, which may happen. It really depends on what they say. Because if I write to these people and everyone's like, "Yeah, no, we don't want to talk to you," then that won't work. But I don't think that's the case. So we'll see. There's definitely some other video game music shows I've been listening to lately, and I think it'd be fun to try to talk to them and maybe hop on each other's shows. We'll see. I can't say for sure yet, but that would be fun. And I'm not sure what else yet. There'll be some other things I'd like to do. We haven't done a lot of interview episodes lately, so maybe get some people on here just to get some variety on the show a little bit. So no dates, but those are the kind of things I'm looking at for the rest of this coming up this year on the show. So whatever happens, look forward to that. If you have ideas for shows, for topics, feedback on this, talk about how great Stephen and Derek are, be sure to email us at music@rpgfan.com. That's the best way to reach the show. So Stephen, how would you like people to reach you if they have comments?
Well, my Twitter is private now because gamers are the worst. So you cannot come to my Twitter unless I know you. Sorry, but I have had a few too many death threats this year due to localization, which is a sane statement. If you would like to chat with me, you can try to message me through my official website, sjmtaelus.com. There's a contact form there. And that's about it.
That's fair. I mean, if you don't even want contact stuff, we don't have to. But
if people have questions, of course, I'm happy to talk questions. If there's questions about localization and ways to get into the industry and sort of things like that, I'm always available for not mentoring, but if you have questions about getting into localization, I am available for that. But unfortunately, because of the realities of communication in the online era, I do not have a public Twitter, and I may never have a public Twitter again. So you can just contact me through my website.
I maybe you don't want to, say this about yourself, but I'm pretty sure that does count as mentoring. So yeah, that is what that is. So it's cool that you are willing to do that and help out people because you believe it or not, you are experienced and you do know this stuff. So
yes, I'm old. It is true.
How about you, Derek? If you want feedback, how can people reach you?
I'm in a similar boat. I've since locked my Twitter and I've actually kind of stepped away from it. Largely, I haven't checked it in about a month, and I'm hoping to keep it that way. Mm-hmm. I am on Twitter at EmbryonX. That's EMBRYONX. You're welcome to follow me, and if I log in, I can follow you back, and we can chat. Otherwise, I have a portfolio, DerekHeemsbergen.com. You can contact me through there if I have the form up, which I'll have to double check. But otherwise, reach out and say, hey, I love to hear from people who listen to the show. Excuse me, I'm very caffeinated. And it's always nice to get feedback. I hope you've enjoyed it, and just the fact that anybody would care to reach out is an honor. So thanks, everybody.
Also, if you need help with your website or your form, I bet you can ask the person who helped Stephen with his website. He might help you out.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. Good looker too. Damn.
Is he?
Yeah,
and doesn't afraid of anything. Now I really did.
Yeah, my portfolio is kind of, but I know a guy. It turns out
you do know a guy. You know lots of guys.
I do. What are you trying to say about my private life?
Well, we'll talk about that later.
You're right. It's whatever you're going to say. You're right.
All right. So one other thing, of course, I have to plug our other shows and everything else about RPG Fan. So, if you enjoyed this, make sure you check out our other podcasts. We have Random Encounter that posts every other Monday, opposite Rhythm Encounter. So recently, I don't remember the exact date, but I know we have our end of the year, year in review thing for Random Encounter. So that'll be up around now. I'm sure it's up by the time you listen to this. Retro Encounter, of course, has just been doing all kinds of stuff. Retro Encounter just posted their year in review last week. Around the time that this goes up, there'll also be a RPG Fan's Guide to Style. I have no idea how they're doing a fashion show episode on an audio podcast, so I'm looking forward to that. So that should be pretty interesting. So yeah, be sure to check out Random Encounter and Retro Encounter. Check RPG Fan out on social media, all the social media platforms that are still around as of this recording. You can generally find us wherever at RPGFan.com as our username. We're also on Twitch. We have a Discord, join our Discord, chat with us there. And a lot of ways you can reach out and follow our content. And there you go. If you enjoyed the show, we'd appreciate if you could listen or follow or subscribe or whatever you do on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever it is you listen. That means a lot to us and, helps us reach more people and, continue spreading the word of video game music. So, that's it. Like I said earlier, we're not doing a bonus episode just because we already had bonus episode. We're not doing a bonus song on this one because we already had 9 tracks. This was a lot of music and a ton of talking. So, I think the bonus was just Stephen and Derek being here at all. So what more do you need?
Okay, but if you did have a bonus, it should be Cassiopeia's theme from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
Oh, okay.
Just saying.
Is that what you want to?
Yeah,
is that what you want to do?
That's me formally putting my suggestion forward.
All right. So our bonus track today that we're suddenly closing out with is Cassiopeia's theme from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Thanks, Derek.
You're so welcome. Happy to help.
Yeah, I didn't know.
My opinions are not affiliated with the Pokemon Company, TM.
I didn't actually know you were going to do that. This actually is a legitimate surprise. So I have not listened and can't comment. But let's close out with that.
And as the music starts coming in to fade us out and stop us talking, may I say to each of our careers in the circus.
Honk, honk.
Yes, sure. All right. Thank you all for being here, or thank you both for being here. Thank you everyone for listening. This was a fantastic time. So we'll have to do it again one day. So
we will.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right.
May all of your encounters be rhythmic.
And not random, unless you like that.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks. We're going to close out with Cassiopeia's theme from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Bye.
All right, let me listen to this song. Sorry about that. I'm just sitting here, like, I'm very caffeinated and excitable right now. So I'm just sitting here like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Like, no, maybe I should listen to the music.
Let's do it. It's on. It's been on. It's on. It's been on.
Yeah. Okay, I'm listening now.